Free agency rumors are escalating for the Toronto Blue Jays as a new report has come out revealing a new Jays target, and who this player is could pay huge dividends going forward for the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm going to break that down in this episode as well as discuss some Jays Gold Glove finalists. They have a couple, and one of them might surprise you. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. If you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, it means the world to myself. You could hit that button. We're on the road now to 14,000 subscribers, and thank you guys for your continued support. But a lot to go over today, and obviously playoff baseball is underway, well underway at this point, and the Jays are on the outside looking in. But a lot of reports are coming out about what the Jays' next steps will be as they head into a very pivotal offseason, where it's the last year of Bichette's contract, of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s contract. And it's no secret that the offense has been, quite frankly, terrible the past couple of years. But some reports are starting to come out regarding how they can go ahead and fix that offense, and that is in the form of third baseman Alex Bregman. As you can see here, a report basically came out from Buster Olney and MLB Insider saying the Blue Jays could be among teams making a move on star third baseman Alex Bregman. It basically goes on to say that after finishing in last place, in the AL East for the first time in 11 years, the Jays, who finished with a 74-88 record, are expected to make a splash in free agency this offseason to try to address problems with the offense. And ESPN's Buster Olney thinks that the Houston Astros third baseman Alex Bregman could be a key name in play. He joined First Up, a radio show, and said, quote, "He's a proven winner. He's a really good third baseman. He can hit. He would help lengthen out their lineup," end quote. And basically went on to say Bregman is 30. He's coming off of the final season of a 5-year, $100 million deal. He's gotten a couple All-Star appearances, all these things. We know how good Alex Bregman is. He's one of the better, if not, he's one of the best third basemen, quite frankly, in baseball. And he said, "We know the Jays have been looking to fill the third base spot more prominently for the past couple years." And basically went on to say that the Jays would be a very good suitor. And there's a few things to take into this. So the first piece of news out of this was obviously Buster Olney, who's on ESPN. He basically said that the Jays are looking to make a big splash this winter. And this is now the third or fourth time we've heard this from different reporters and different insiders saying that basically the Jays are going to look to make a huge move this offseason. Now, whether that's in the form of Juan Soto, we know reports have come out saying that they're going to make an astronomical offer for him, whether that's a guy like Pete Alonso, or in this case, a guy like Alex Bregman is still up in the air. But to know that the Jays, according to multiple insiders, are poised to make a big splash makes things very interesting if you're a Toronto Blue Jays fan. I mean, at this point, they should be looking to make a huge splash. They have no reason not to. They haven't been able, obviously, they're owned by Rogers. They have all the money in the world. They haven't been able to get one of those big fish really since George Springer, you could argue. And now that they're coming off of a season, an off season, where they tried to get Shohei Ohtani and it didn't work, and now they're going to try to get Juan Soto, they need to have contingency plans. And I think at this point, a guy like Alex Bregman could be a very reasonable contingency plan. The only thing is, and the biggest concern, he is 30. This is a very similar time of their career and almost contract structure to when they signed George Springer. And whether you want to think that George Springer was a great signing or not, I'll leave it up to you. Some fans think it was one of the worst signings in franchise history. Some think it's pretty good. I'm somewhere in the middle. They obviously had a couple prime years with George Springer. Now the contract's looking rough as he ages, as he begins to have his decline, especially with the bat. So it would be a very similar situation. You're not signing a guy at this point who's 26 years old. You're signing someone who's 30 years old. And when you're signing someone who's 30, it comes with all the risks in doing so, especially when you're at the point of his career where he's probably going to start to decline in 2 or 3 years. And he's probably going to want a contract similar to George Springer, where it's 4 or 5 years, $150 million, maybe even more with how much things are going up now. But it'll probably be somewhere in that range. I mean, he's coming off of a 5-year, $100 million deal, so I'd suspect he'd want somewhere in the range. But one of the problems is that he's one of the most desired free agency pieces on the market. You can see here, Bregman is expected to be one of the most attractive pieces on the market in free agency this winter, and the Blue Jays will have no shortage in competition to acquire his services. But here's the thing. This is what Buster Olney said. Not only does Houston want him back, and I do think there are limits to what the Astros can offer him, but there's another team that's on the rise in the AL that also could use a third baseman, and that would be the Detroit Tigers. And we know that the Tigers are basically coming off of, they're of course eliminated from the playoffs now, but they're coming off of a crazy year, tons of progression from their young guys. At the trade deadline, they were at the same point as the Blue Jays and 0.5% odds to make the playoffs. Jays had like a 0.1 or something like that, and the Tigers went out and did it. They made the playoffs, and now they could be poised to make a pretty big splash in free agency. And you can see here, I think given their late season success, given the excellence of their players and what they're building there, and given AJ Hinch's influence, who is a former Houston Astros manager before the scandal, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they made a run at Alex Bregman as someone who could be the anchor for these young players in the Tigers. And I mean, if you're a Tigers fan watching this, or you're a Tigers fan in general, it makes a ton of sense for the Tigers as well, especially coming off of a year where they overachieved, and now you want to be able to sustain that, because there's a lot of times where teams have, I'm not necessarily saying the Tigers season was a fluke, but there's times that the players overperform and they need to add to their lineup in order to keep that sustained and obviously keep the playoff success sustained. But something to keep in mind here is we're talking about adding a third baseman. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made 11 starts at third base. We saw it in the second half of the season last year. Now, whether that was because they were auditioning for some trades, whether it was because at this point they think they're going to need to sign someone who can play first base like a Pete Alonso in order to maximize their offensive output, or even just Spencer Horwitz. Vlad spoke out and said, I signed as a third baseman, so it is my favorite position. Regardless of if third is my favorite position, I'll be prepared first or third wherever the team needs me. And that's the biggest question mark, is if they want to play Vladdy at third, then there probably is less of a need for Bregman. But I don't know how much confidence I have in Vladdy playing third over a full 162-game season when he hasn't really shown the ability to do that at a very solid level. So that's something very interesting in this. But ultimately, whether or not the Jays attempt to sign Alex Bregman, they probably will, depending on what happens with Juan Soto. If they somehow, by a miracle, manage to land Juan Soto, then everything changes a little bit here, because at that point, then you're really going all in, but you also got the best hitter in baseball on your team. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think this is more of a plan B if they don't land Juan Soto. And again, he's 30. He's a third baseman. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually go ahead and want to pursue a third baseman, or if they're confident keeping Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at third base. That's the biggest question mark. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. But one other thing before we wrap up here is the Gold Glovers. So Jays, Dalton Varsho, and Ernie Clement are among Gold Glove finalists. Blue Jays center fielder Dalton Varsho and third baseman Ernie Clement were among the 2024 Rawlings Gold Glove Award finalists revealed Tuesday. He's up against Jarren Duran and Jake Myers, and for Dalton Varsho's point of view, he's at a bit of a disadvantage, even though he is the best defender in baseball. He didn't play a ton of innings at center field. He played over 400 innings in left field before they shipped off Kevin Kiermaier, so that's going to obviously hurt his case a little bit, especially because I would say the favorite at this point is Jarren Duran. He's played the most center field out of all these guys. Jake Myers played a little bit as well. And then Ernie Clement is the bigger surprise here, and he's actually joined by finalists Alex Bregman and Jose Ramirez, but it's very interesting to see how Ernie Clement's career has kind of turned around when he was DFA'd by the Oakland Athletics, and then he was picked up by the Toronto Blue Jays. And ever since then, really, he's been up and down, but he made the team out of camp this past season, and he never got sent down. He had a very solid year. He's only 28 years old. He is, and we saw it last year, he could be a contributor on a team every day. It's just a matter of if he can actually be an everyday player. Obviously, he can be on our MLB roster, but he might be more suited as a fourth infielder, pinch runner, pinch hitter at times, because he doesn't have much power, but he hits for high average. So it's nice to see him get some recognition that he definitely deserves, as he had a very good year last year. And then Dalton Varsho, again, he's probably going to get snubbed just because of the lack of innings in center field, which is something that's unfortunate at this point, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with them. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, and of course what your thoughts are on Alex Bregman potentially being on the way to Toronto once the playoffs conclude. It's going to be a very busy offseason, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date. We'll see you soon.